more thankfulness in their hearts than you do as a follower of Yahweh. Ouch. That hurts. Yep. You know? That hurts. I'm so glad that he highlighted that. So this is what Jesus said to the one guy. Because I was like, well, what happened then? Like, did he get something special for being the one guy who came back? And Luke 17:19, it says this. This is what Jesus said to him. Rise and go, your faith has made you well. And I was like, wait a minute, he already was well. All of the guys were well, right? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, I bet it's a different word. Okay, so I looked it up. In Hebrew, the guys were all cleansed or purified, and that's katharizo is the word, okay? But the word well is actually one of my favorite words in the Gospels, and Luke likes this word. It's sozo, okay? We've talked about this word before, but you can't talk about it enough. Sozo is the word that's translated as to be saved, right? To be saved. And it's also the word that is used for healed, depending on the context. Saved and healed and delivered. So in this broader sense, being sozo is being whole. Not just in a I'm healed way, I'm physically healed, but you are whole. Like there's an integrity in who you are. Your mind and your body and your spirit. You are saved. You are healed. You are delivered. This is what Jesus is saying to this guy who came back to him. And he said that it wasn't that Jesus did that. He said it's your faith that has made you whole. Your faith in God has made you whole. And this thankfulness is just a part of that, right? Isn't that tremendous? What is happening here? So which came first? The chicken or the egg, right? So do we have to be thankful to be healed? Jesus healed these 10 guys, and then he questioned the thankfulness of 9 of them, right? Does being healed automatically make us thankful?
No, those 9 guys are perfect.
Exactly. No. That's scary to me. That God could do something for me, and my response would not be thankfulness toward him. So let's think on that. So thankfulness, it reveals what's already in our heart. But I also believe that thankfulness, if it's not already there, it can also change the heart. Yeah. So it's this interesting thing. If we have it, it's a really good thing. If we don't, thankfulness can actually be used to bring our heart to the place it needs to be, bring heart change. So it brings a deeper level of healing to those who embrace it. So sometimes thankfulness flows, right? We're just in these seasons where God is so good and we see his hand at work and it's just natural. And then other times, thankfulness is hard to come by. And in those times, thankfulness is a choice that we have to make. That's why Paul, when he talks about thankfulness, he can give it as a command. Colossians 3:15, be thankful. Just like that. That's what he said. It's like sandwiched in all these other things that he's telling us, but then it's just be thankful. All right? You want to memorize a Bible verse and try to apply it? Here's an easy one to memorize. Harder one maybe to apply. Have you ever asked God, what is your will for my life? I should see hands everywhere, right? All right? Anybody said that? God, what is your will for my life? What do you desire for me? Well, Mr. St. Paul makes that pretty clear. Listen to this. 1 Thessalonians 5:16. Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. What? I was hoping, God, that you would say, you're going to give me this ministry, and I'm going to pray for people, and they're going to be healed. And I thought that's what your will was. Like, that you were going to give me like some specific path that I need to take. Sometimes, yeah. But you know what? He's got a very specific will here for you. And that's part of that is giving thanks. That's what he wants of your life. That's his will and his desire for you. And then, we're going to take that to the next level. Because, it only means when things are good and you're really feeling it. That you, right? No, the rest of that says in every circumstance. So that's right. Sometimes it's God's will not to give in to your feelings. Yep. Now, feelings are God-given, but they're not meant to control us. Amen. There are times when we need to make a choice that doesn't seem to fit our feelings and our circumstances. Okay? This is tough, I know. I don't think that means that we avoid... I want to be clear about this, okay? I'm not asking you, and I don't think God's asking you to avoid your feelings or to deny your feelings, right. Okay? That's stuffing things down, and that's not healthy either. But there is a place where we go beyond our feelings. We kind of go outside of them. So I was meeting with someone this week. She's going through a whole lot of stuff in her life. And unfortunately, I had bad news to deliver to her. Because I had more stuff that she had to do in this transition in her life. Okay? Not somebody here, by the way. And so I had listed out, like, hey, here's all the things you're going to have to do to take the next step. And I was feeling really bad when we started the phone call even. And so I said to her, I was like, hey, do you want to start with some kind of low-hanging fruit, like some easy stuff that we can just knock out? Or do you want me just to go over the list? And she said, you know what, Kevin? She said it so confidently too. She said, Kevin, I just want to hear all of it. And I was like, what? Are you serious? She's like, yeah. I want to know every bit that I'm going to need to face. Everything that I'm going to face that's coming up in front of me. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's a unique perspective. And then she went on to talk about perturbation theory. She's like, do you know what that is? And I was like, what? No, I have no idea. She said, it comes from, I had to look it up. The word perturbed. Okay, yeah. I've been there. Right? Like, it's really bugging me. Perturbed. Perturbation theory. It's when something, it's kind of a mathematical thing, but I imagine it as something that is so overwhelming that you almost don't know where to begin with it, okay? And what this theory says is you have to sometimes break it down so that you can find the one piece that is solvable and figure out the rest from there. Like, even if it's a generalization from there, you start with what is solvable. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, that's kind of like what we have to do when we're so overwhelmed that we can't find this place of thankfulness. We have to find that one piece that we can be thankful for. And I have found, even in the loss of someone, a family member, I can't tell you how many times that I've been talking to somebody and they've lost someone, and yet they were able to find this thing that happened among their family, as they were talking or whatever, just a positive thing that kind of came out of it, that they found amidst all this trial and this challenge. And that one thing sometimes sets the course differently for them. And that's what we have to do. In the midst of the trial and the challenge and the overwhelm, find that one little piece that you can be thankful for. And that can become the seed for bigger things to be thankful for. Sometimes you just need the seed. All right? I feel the need for a seed. All right. Sorry, I had to go there. All right.
It was good, Kevin. It was good.
Oh. You don't get it. I'll tell you. You could ask me later.
Believe me, I've watched it a million times. He does get it.
Yeah, I know he does. Sometimes we have to decide in advance that thankfulness is going to be our modus operandi. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I remember when I was a teenager, I read this story in Guidepost magazine. And it was about a lady in Asia, I think in China, if I recall, who had been imprisoned for her faith. And she was sitting in this cell alone and wallowing in her misery. And one day she just noticed this little spider up in the corner of her cell. And she talks about how this spider basically kind of became her friend. It kind of became her hope in a situation where she felt very hopeless. And somehow with that spider, that was a reminder to her that God was close at hand and had not forgotten her. And one day, unfortunately, there was bad weather or a gust of wind, and the web was broken, the spider was gone, and it really broke her heart, And guess what happened the next day? That spider web was there again, and that little spider had come back and rebuilt everything. And she had such a heart of gratitude to the Lord for that little, what a seemingly silly little thing. There's spiders everywhere. They say that you are never more than 5 or 6 feet from a spider wherever you are. Did you know that? You didn't want to know that, but there you go. But that spider became such this place of gratitude, and just because it was a reminder of God, and that He hadn't left her, and that she could persevere through this trying circumstance. I just think that's an amazing picture. So we need, as individuals, this culture, this heart of thankfulness. But I also think, as a church, we also want to find this place of a culture of thankfulness. Amen. As well, right? And in Colossians, Paul wasn't just talking to individuals. We read the Bible because we're this individualistic culture, right? So we read the Bible in that way. But he was talking to the church in Colossae, this city, when he was writing. And so listen to some of the verses here. Do you have this one, Joel? Yeah, that's it. I noticed I didn't put the full reference, so I want to make sure you had it. I'm going to read this whole passage, and I want to highlight a few words, okay? Therefore, as God's chosen people, okay? Not just you, because you're a chosen person. He's not just talking to you, Annetta, or Lana, or whoever. He's talking to all of God's chosen people, right? Holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience. Bear with each other. We can only do that in the context of community, right? And forgive one another if you have any grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues put on love, which binds us all together in perfect unity. Okay, that's a togetherness verse, right? Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body. That's a together verse, all right? You were called to peace. And there it is, be thankful. We read that one earlier, right? Let the message of Christ, here's another one, dwell among you. That's a unity. That's a together verse. As you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom. Okay, so here's this thankfulness verse in the midst of all this stuff about what your community as members of one body of Christ should be like. And so it's the jelly in the sandwich, right? There's these layers, and I think that's the jelly in the sandwich. We should be thankful as a group, okay? And find reasons to be thankful. I was reading, this came out of my quiet time. I normally try to, quiet time is for me, and then, study time is for prep for Sundays. But, this really jumped out at me this week. King David created a culture of thankfulness in Israel. And after he kind of built things up in Jerusalem, they hadn't built the temple yet because his son Solomon was supposed to do that. God said Solomon's going to build the temple. So they still needed a place for the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, and so they were keeping it